into 40 countries. Mr. Shah currently is also serving as a Senior Vice President of BI Non-Ferrous Division and Senior Vice President at MRAI.
I think that was Amar Singh at his poetic best. So, anyways, I think if I had to make an opinion or a comment on the last hour and a half, I think we'll divide it into two parts. The first part, the word waste shipment resonated a lot, and I think the second part was all about recycled materials. The first part represented perhaps chaos, conflicts that are coming up that we need to battle out. The other one represented the opportunities. And I think world over there has been major upheaval in terms of how country after country, blocks after blocks, they are looking at their policies in terms of raw materials. So I think you asked a very pertinent question last night, Madam. You asked about how will India get its materials. So though we have put here Europe in a central axis, but I'll tell you one thing, that in the last 6 months or so, we've had Middle East who came up and said that we are not going to export our ferrous scrap, steel scrap. We've had South Africa to come up and say that we are not going to export our copper scrap or copper alloy scrap. Very recently, there's a very serious representation come up from the Australian consumers for whatever little steel that they produce, that no more export of Australian steel scrap. I don't know when that happens, but for sure, for the material scrap that is flowing into India, the steel scrap from Australia, that perhaps could stop. And of course, EU, which has become a burning issue here. And why I say this is because two things. One is we see EU as a champion of free trade, but I think this whole free trade when it comes to raw materials or scrap, I think they have taken a very different approach. But more importantly, when I look at India, I think the question that I'm going to ask here is that with almost about 30% of its raw material appetite coming from Europe, what will India do if they stop? I think it's going to take the wind out of our sails. This whole story or this effort that MRAI and everybody else over here is making to make India a global recycling hub, I think that kind of falls apart. And what I would like to ask everybody here, the panel here, Emmanuel, Tom, Susie, everyone here, that, I think if you see conventions after conventions, the global ones, like, if you talk about the COP conventions, we've had World Economic Forum. I asked Surendrabhai this morning that what was the top discussion there. I think sustainability, going green, and asking the developing countries, the transitioning to the green economy, they want speedy effort, timelines set. But here is the thing, that India is willing to push its frontiers. They are willing to sort of adapt this. They want raw material to do this, but then on the other side, Europe comes and says, all right, we want you to do this, but I won't be able to give you raw materials anymore, regardless of the fact that whether I consume it or not consume it. And I think that's the dilemma, that's the confusion, that's the conflict that we are talking about. Anyways, I think obviously we will talk about these problems through a Q&A, but I'm here to talk about India-centric issues, and I wanted to bring out three important things. The first one is about duties, and why I bring this up is because over the last year and a half, 2 years, we've gone all out in terms of making friendship through FTAs, through free trade agreements. We pulled out of RCEP because that wasn't working in our favor with China being there, and that possibly could have hurt our manufacturing sector. But what we should realize is that this import duty on scrap, so with steel and with Madam's effort, I think we are the lucky ones, but on the non-ferrous side, we still have an import duty there. The problem here is that while we make friendships, while we make free trade agreements, we've got 2 free trade agreements very recently. We're talking to now UK, we're talking one with Canada, we're going to be talking in bits and pieces with Europe as well, Australia. I think the question here is that why we bring on these free trade agreements, the import duty on scrap, because you see today we want to grow to a very sort of, we want to make the world as our market. Now on the non-ferrous side, you see we've tested the export markets, but we are not consistent. We are not able to push volumes, and the simple reason that we are not able to push volumes because acceptance of quality, the demand all being there, but the duty difference, because what is happening is there that we are taxing our raw material, whereas they don't. None of the countries, none of the blocks, ma'am, and this is a very important piece of information, whether EU, US, ASEAN zone, all the 16, they don't tax their scrap. They need it, they consider that as a vital raw material, and they allow that to come in duty free. But then here, we charge that. And what is happening is that there is a substitution, that the value addition happens somewhere else, and the downstream products then start coming into India. We have a very vibrant economy here. The ecosystem here is very suitable for value addition. It brings taxes for the government, it adds to the employment and the overall environmental equation. But I think we've kind of, with this tax, I think we're letting this opportunity go away, and I think that needs a rectification, correction right away. So that's number one. Number two is the pre-shipment inspection certificate. And I think this is more to the, when I say this, it's more for the consumers, for the importers here. You see, today MRAI fought with the government, with DGFT, with Ministry of Commerce to say that while the intent, the spirit of this PSIC is understood why you want that, but we need to simplify things. And they allowed us a safe passage in a way that they said there are these 7 countries, safe countries, from the Western world. So we've got US, we've got European Union, we've got the UK, Australia, to say that, okay, if scrap flows in from those countries, shredded or non-shredded, that will not need a pre-shipment inspection certificate. But as I can see, what is a daily practice here is that we've allowed custom clearances on a daily basis, and we provide those pre-shipment certificates, which is a cost addition. I think we all need to stand up together, because law is very clear that there is an exemption there, but it is just that's trade. We've not really taken it hard enough or taken a strong position there that we will stop giving pre-shipment inspection certificate. We'll avoid that cost and make our products or make our business model more competitive. So I think we need to look at that. And last thing is about perception and branding, and I think I could not have agreed more than what Robin said here, that it's just about how we look at things. We all like to bring up good stories, nice examples in terms of what sustainability or recycling can do. But even from my perspective, I think, well, as business, what we are doing, of course, that's good enough, but I think even for the government, and I feel that, there are some big, great efforts being made. I was just reading about Statue of Unity. I think for my friends who've come from overseas, we've built the world's biggest, tallest statue, and it's very iconic. I think it's the most popular destination right now for people from all around the country want to go and see the statue. And that has used about 17,500 tons of steel, 1,700 tons of bronze. We are making a new Parliament House that's going to take up about 27,000 tons of steel. I think this whole recycling story has also to be demonstrated through those efforts, through these mega projects, where, if anything, if the government encourages use of recycled steel or recycled copper alloys for those projects, I think it just kind of, connects the story, what we are trying to all achieve here for this today and for the next 2 days. I think it just kind of all adds up. You see, today as a society, we are all very conscious in terms of the choices that we want to make. We want to make the right choices. If you look at food products, today, low sugar, organic food, red tag, green tag, it matters a lot because it's all for personal consumption, and today consumption needs ethical or a moral validation. So I think the minute the government says that we've made this Statue of Unity using whatever, even 5,000 tons of recycled steel, that's kind of work done. So that's the message that I want to leave with. Maybe going down the line, maybe the products that we use, if they come with a tag carbon intensity, and I think the secondary steel or secondary aluminium, whatever, if you put a tag there, let the consumers decide that here is a choice that I have, this is primary aluminium with carbon intensity of so-and-so, and here is recycled aluminium with a carbon intensity of so-and-so. Let the consumers decide what they want. So I think I'll leave that as food for thought, and I'll end my presentation on my speech here.
Thank you so much, Dhawal bhai. Now I request